The conference work session for January 8th, 2026. Happy New Year, everybody.
Councilmember Deems?
Here.
Councilmember Howe?
Present.
Councilmember Hyman?
Present.
Councilmember Jackson?
Here.
Councilmember Ward?
Here.
Vice Mayor Riffle?
Here.
Mayor Malpachuck?
Here.
Presentation by Healthy Harrison regarding the YMCA.
Hey everybody, John Palnardelli, Executive Director of Healthy Harrison. Very grateful for the opportunity to come back. Of course, the last time I saw all of you, there was a motion approved in order for us to conduct a in-depth study. And rather than waiting till February, Glenn and I thought it would be a good idea to give you a midway checkpoint. We have a lot of information to share, and I know that we want to be efficient with time, so I'm going to kick it to Glenn. But what I'll tell you is that between the two of us, I think we have more information about the YMCA than the village people. So we look very much forward to giving you an in-depth analysis of all the work we've done to date, and then also really look to engage you guys on how to create a path forward. So without any further ado, for those of you who might be in the audience, Glenn Weber has worked directly with Healthy Harrison for the past 10 years. He's been a consultant for over 30 years. So I want to thank Glenn for taking the opportunity to come and do some work for us.
Thank you all. Glad to be here. My experience is people hire consultants for different reasons. But one of the reasons why people hire them is because we come in and we ask a lot of stupid questions that people don't typically ask. So, and that's a lot of what I think each one of you have spoken with. And I think what you're going to hear back tonight is a lot of what I heard from you all played back. So let me start. You know how the first, there were 4 things that we talked about in terms of delivering a report to you. One was, I don't know how we would come up with a recommendation on what to do with the YMCA if we didn't first understand the community needs. What is it you want done? So that's the first thing. The second thing is, what are the options for doing it? The third one is, and I'll probably refer to a couple of you, but Jerry, you said, I want it actionable. So give me the financial options and give me the how to make it actionable. We're not there yet. This is an interim report. You're going to see 4 very different options. You may say, I like 1, I like 3, I like 4. Depends on what goals you want to accomplish. But then based on that, we'll run financial analysis and give you an action plan so you can convert it into something that happens. So that's why this is a midpoint, not a final. Okay? And I think, interrupt me if you have any questions. I think this is pretty casual. Next slide, John Paul. I think that says what I just said. Here's the 8th. We'll be back here in 42 days. Now, this is probably the hardest slide to read, but it may be one of the most important ones. If you go to the top left-hand corner, the request we understood at the very beginning was, tell us what to do. Give us some options for the YMCA. What should we do? I think there was an opportunity to come back pretty quickly and tell you what to do. Whether you should close it, whether you should open it. But what we did is we went up and we made a couple things. The first thing we did was look at the facilities. And then what we did is we got all the financials. What's it look like? How have they been spending money? What's it cost? How many people are coming up here? That's the second block. Then we talked to all of you. I think we interviewed every single one of you. And these are representative quotes. So when we see things like, I used to go up to the Y, and this is incredibly important to me. We need something that's very important to the community. What do we do with this asset? We heard people like, we need something that creates civic pride. Don't come back with just an answer. One of you said, give me options. In fact, Ryan, you specifically said, give me options.
Yeah.
I want to see what are some options for this whole thing. So when we heard that, all of a sudden it got a little bit more complicated than do you just open it or close it? Because then at the bottom of that chart, we went into a new direction, which is part of the reason why we're here. And the direction, based on the feedback we heard, was what can be done to create civic pride with this asset? How do we use this asset to help and how do we address the community's needs with this asset? And then how do we do something that will put a little bit more swagger into a community that used to be more vibrant than it is today, right? All make sense? Okay. Then John Paul and I went on a ride that was for 3 weeks. We started going and we met with several, and you said, what are the needs of the community in detail? Tell us what the people are like here. Tell us what they need, what type of support. Then what we did is we started calling other communities and said, what do you do when you're in this situation? What do you do when you have a valuable asset that has had a history, that's kind of run its course? What do you do? Do you pump it back up? Do you take the money? Do you redeploy it? What do you do? So we started calling people in the state here in the West Virginia. Then we started calling outside the state. We called people in Ohio. We started to also call vendors. And we started calling people in California. We were all over the place. We talked to people in Oklahoma. Anyway, we were all over the place in terms of getting different ideas. So the way we work is give us all these ideas, then we start to filter them back down to what's practical. What can you really do with this? And that's where we came up with our 4 options. You're going to get some not so interesting ones that may be perfect for what you want to accomplish, and you're going to get some creative ones tonight. And then we actually went to a couple people in the community and floated it by to see which ones they liked to make sure that these were applicable. Does that all make sense? Okay.
Yeah, they do. Question, when you were making these calls, were you calling areas that were basically like same demographics?
Yes.
Same?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes,
great.
we were.
Great.
We were calling different ones, a lot of rural. In fact, I'll tell you when we get to one of them, it's really interesting, Oklahoma specifically. Next slide. I'm going to give you just a couple facts. Everybody may know this about the YMCA, but when we got all the financials and everything else, the estimated value, and John Paul actually we talked to some people about what's this land appraised at. It was 2.1 million was the appraised value. It doesn't mean you can sell it for that. It's just what, the appraisal is. 25 acres. It's 60 years old. Everybody universally said the pool is the biggest asset. I think it's the only second indoor pool in Harrison County is what they told us. And that the basketball courts are really valuable. Okay, so that's a little bit about the asset itself. Next slide. Who uses it? I thought this was very interesting. Actually, we had to dig through a lot of information to make this simple because we really start off by saying, hey, thousands of people are up here. Well, there aren't thousands of people. The average number of people that use it a day was 308. They said, well, the Silver Sneakers are up here. Well, 25 of them are up there. A lot of them, and I think, Mayor, you pointed out there's been a lot of other competitive gyms that have opened up, and so a lot of them are going to other gyms. When we calculated the cost per member, how much money are they currently spending on the Y to keep the doors open per member, it was close to $5,000. How many people come up and use your summer camp out of your population? 80. How many after school? 30. The operating loss was really interesting. You wonder why the Y is closed? They're losing $500,000 a year, and I've forgotten Mr. Green's first name, but you ought to put a painting up to him. He's a hero in this community for what he's done for this YMCA, and he loves the YMCA, and he was incredibly helpful. So those are some basic facts that really influence some of the options available to you, but that's kind of the cost and that's the usage. Okay.
You know how many members that they had?
Yeah, there
The
were.
day closed?
What I would say to answer that is so complicated because the reason is because the way they track and monitor members, so it's not X number of members. It's X number of Silver Sneakers. If I could just give you an example of how complicated it is to measure these numbers. Silver Sneakers, that's not 25 members, like 25 people enrolled. The way Silver Sneakers works is that if a senior is interested, Medicare or Medicaid will pay towards their membership every time they visit. So if they go 3 times, it may add an additional $5 to the bottom line of the membership.
But there were several hundred people.
Several hundred.
But when we talked to the people that ran the Y, we said, kind of boil this down to is how many people really show up. And those are the numbers you're seeing.
Yeah, I was just curious how, on their register, how many
Yeah, they
active-
have quite a few.
And you said several hundred.
Yeah.
So their payroll was top heavy, obviously. It was $41,666.
There were 30 people up there.
Does that include operating costs?
Not in the staff number. We don't have the actual, we've got the numbers, but it was a big staff. Now, my job is not to condemn anything they're doing.
Right.
I'm just giving you some basic facts about the cost associated with it. And as I said, I think they did a great job. The next slide, though, gets us into the community needs. Okay, so what are the needs of the community? What do you want the Y to be able to do? Well, that's a little bit complicated. Let's go to this first slide, which is the most complicated. You can throw all three of them up there. This may be the most complicated slide that we have. What we did is we held focus groups. Wayne, Will, Jerry, Mark, Ryan, all of you, I think we met with you and we said, help us break down the needs of the community. And we did it by the different three categories: youth, adults, and seniors. So you've got 3,300 children, basically. Those numbers aren't exactly right, but they're close enough. And when we talked to you, we said, hey, we have a lot of vulnerable children here that need help. You know, they need childcare, they need mentorship, they need a number of different things. We broke all this down to get a better understanding, because one of the things you, Mark, you said is we got to take care of the children. So we need to understand how many children and what kind of shape are they in. So these profiles, and we'll give you a printout that gives you details on all of these, okay, for you to read. So you can get detailed information on all of these. But this is kind of a profile based on the feedback we got from you of the needs of the community, which we summarize on the next slide. I think I'm not going to read this to you. You can read faster than I can talk. But the adults, there's a real workforce development need. That's not really a YMCA thing per se, but in terms of needs of the community, you may or not want to address that. There's a need there. If you look at the youth, the Y did a good job of providing safe spaces, supervised environment, and physical activity for a very small percentage of your young people. It's 5%. Okay. They did it. They did a nice job, but it wasn't impactful if you're looking at a real impact. So, and then finally, your seniors, it did provide some social connection for, again, a small percentage of your seniors. But they have unique needs. Each one of these groups have unique needs, okay? So I'll come back to you at the end and I'll say, how much do you want to bite off in terms of the needs of your community? The why is there is an opportunity now that you have this asset to say, I want to reposition it and use it different ways. I'm going to give you some options that will allow you to do that, but I'm also going to give you some options where you don't have to do that. Next.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So, are you able to answer the question why they were only able to provide, a safe space for a small percentage of youth?
A couple reasons why.
Okay.
There's not one. There's a
Yeah.
couple reasons.
I
One,
didn't
it's
think there would be
inaccessible.
Except,
Yeah, several people said this is out of the way and it's difficult to get there. The second one is, and I think the mayor pointed this out, there is a lot of competition that's opened up. There's inexpensive competition with newer facilities. Three, the facilities here, for the age of the building, it's not as nice as the other ones. The gym area with showers, it's not really something that's satisfactory. So the shape of the facilities, the inaccessibility, and the competition are three reasons off the top that I can come up with. Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay.
thank you.
Yeah, sure.
One thing I want to just point out prior to going into the options, I really want to draw attention to the connection between the needs and the YMCA itself. I think all of you were members of the Y at one point in time. Is that accurate?
Yeah.
So all of you could speak and attest to the fact that my parents could drop me off at the Y completely safe and everything's good. Keep in mind when we look at these options here that yes, the building's closed. Yes, the property's not currently being used necessarily. But so much more than just figuring out how to utilize the building and the property is finding a way to satisfy the needs of the community that aren't being met as a result of the doors closing. Does that make sense? So again, Glenn already shared with you, some of these options are a little bit maybe out of what you would have considered when initially asking, can Healthy Harrison help, with reopening the Y? Well, there's a lot more to it. The complexity comes from wanting to fill the needs and of the gap that has been created from the doors closing.
Okay, option one. You can, and in a way you already have, you can open up a modified version of the Y. The cost and the way it was, I don't think is practical with the kind of loss. You're not going to always have a Mr. Green to support it. So, but you could, because the pool's valuable, you could reopen this, and even though, and you could provide transportation to increase the number of people that go up there. You probably got to put $300,000 to $500,000 into the facility. And you could do a very modified schedule. You could have 2 or 3 people up there staffed instead of 30. You could cut the hours back. We could come up with a financial plan that is acceptable, and it'll have somewhat of a modest impact, but that is doable. We even talked to a couple people and said, would you take this Y over so the government's out of it completely? And we didn't talk to enough. That could be pursued, but the answer is no, we're not interested, okay? Because of the shape of the building, because of the proximity, because of all the things I talked about. But this is an option. You in essence have part of that now because the Parks is opening up the pool, so you have some version of that. But that's option one, okay? This one's kind of interesting. You've got, we actually had an intern that was doing work for us and calling around. And there are a couple different options to build an adventure park up there. This is one picture, but you've got people in the community that want to do bike trails up there and have got a grant or a loan already lined up to do that if you should happen to do it. All of these options have pros and cons. I'm not recommending any, and we will give you a sheet in the last page that breaks the pros and cons down to all for each one of these, so you can look at them and see before you make a decision. But it's a great view up there. And if you want to keep the asset, because you've got it, you own it, you want to keep it, you could create some form of an adventure park up there. Could you partner with somebody to run the whole thing and get your hands away from it? I don't know. We'd have to look into that. But, right now it's your baby, but it's a possibility. And we did look at some costs associated with that. Our intern came back with a minimum of $500,000, and it could go as high as a couple million. It depends on how great you want to make it. This would be driven more along the West Virginia brand. It could become a tourist attraction. People could come down here. It probably doesn't have a huge impact on the community, but it's a good use of the property. That's an option. Okay. Now this is an interesting option. I'm going to call this Hope Hill. John Paul hates it when I say this, but if you go back to the origins of the YMCA in 1844 in London, it was formed to create a sanctuary for people during the industrial age, to have Christian fellowship, to create a different environment for people, so they had a safe place to go. One idea is to take Hope, the hill that you have, and turn it into a sanctuary for your people. They go up there and provide transportation for them. And you could create cottages. They don't have to be cottages, but pods, I'll say, that are strictly address the community's needs about what they need. So if you need something for aftercare, then there's an aftercare department or building or function for them. And one of the things that Mark talked about is you need better programming. We need better programming to address more needs. This is designed to specifically provide programming to meet the needs of the community. So we've got workforce development there. You've got universities, and we talked to one of them today that has things like HISTA that can educate people, that can start, and there are trade schools in this community that could be involved in the workforce development area. Some of the people need to be trained how to show up for work and what the right protocol is. That can be done. For your elders, they could be taught, they could be worked with in terms of what's your purpose in life. They could even go over and start to sing and join the choir. It depends on your community's needs. But the point of this slide is to say that it can be addressed to specific community needs once they're clearly defined and you have very specific needs. Am I making sense? We call it Hope Hill. This isn't exactly a crazy idea. If you go to the next slide, this is being done. There's two things to note. The item on the right is the governor's conference, I think last year, adopted this whole idea of how to deal in rural America and go out into communities that are not depressed, but they've lost their swagger, I'll say. And they're going out and they're teaching them how to be more hopeful. And they're using a scientific method, which is the author of is a guy by the name of Dr. Snyder. And we've actually, Dr. Chan Hellman out of Oklahoma has set up a Hope Institute to go into communities to train you how to be more optimistic, how to be more hopeful by helping the community create goals, create pathways on how to get there, and build a positive environment so they're encouraged to do it. It's a whole science, and it's actually in 15 states. So it's not a crazy idea. It's just an out-of-the-box idea, okay? Am I clear enough on this one?
Yeah.
Okay, a little out of the box?
And it's
That's
always
out of the box. Okay, I'm gonna stretch a little further.
Oh, okay.
Okay, you ready for the next one? Now, actually, this one, this idea is like, hey, let's give up. We've got this land, it's an asset. We're not using the asset the way it should be. Why don't we sell the property, get rid of it, and redeploy the money downtown? Let's make the community vibrant again. Now I know people get hung up on these buildings and say, hey, those buildings are owned by certain people. This is just an AI picture, okay? But the point of this is you could take the same concept of community needs, whether it's childcare, whether it's something that helps with workforce development, and you can create rental spaces downtown in a core area. And in addition to that, you can create programming where you have events on a regular basis to get people out of their houses and get them back into the streets and build a community again.